to be interviewed by Tanya in a fireside chat style. So really dig into this. And then right after that, we got Levi, YouTube expert on the planet. We got Bill Stringer. We got Brent Gove wrapping us up. So it's just firepower after firepower. But the next couple needs no introduction, honestly. You guys come on up. Glenn Sanford, Tanya Memmi, thank you for being here. Love you.
Hello?
Hello? Yes,
Hello.
hi.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, we have Glenn Sanford. This is great. Thanks for coming out. I know a lot of people are very excited that he's here today, so including myself.
Yeah, well, and the stuff that I haven't been here all day, but this is such an amazing group of people you're learning from. I mean, Dan and Carrie, the stuff that they were dropping, amazing. Tom Daves and what he was talking about and mindset. I mean, think about what you're getting in this room. I mean, I mentioned this. I said this obviously a little bit in jest, but I haven't actively sold real estate for 15 years because I've been building the company. So what's working today, you're getting from the people who actually do it at a really high level. I can give you stuff that I think still works, but their stuff works. So.
Well, we have some questions here that we're all really looking forward to you answering. So many questions that we could be asking, but we had to narrow them down to about 7. So when you first envisioned this new model years ago, did you imagine that a cloud-based model would see the exponential growth that EXP has experienced?
Well, I did pick the first 3 letters EXP for a reason.
Right.
In theory, it made sense. I mean, I was a focus group of one. Some of you have heard me say that if you've been to different EXP events. But I had built, a large real estate team. I was a glutton for punishment. I started 6 teams. I started in my second, third year in real estate. So I went from individual agent to internet lead gen at a high level to then growing 6 different real estate teams. And then by year 7 is when I started EXP. So I did all this in a fairly short period of time. And I took a lot of mental notes of what I would do differently in the business if I had an opportunity to sort of start from scratch. And of course, 2008 was, it was a time that was pretty challenging for the industry, including myself. I had 4 physical offices. And so I had to close down 3 of them, went to a skeleton crew on the 4th. But what I also recognized at that period of time was that high-speed internet was pretty ubiquitous, pretty much everywhere. Now, even 3G on your phones actually was reasonably fast back in the day. Now I wouldn't touch a 3G phone even if you gave it to me for free. But you could do a fair bit with 3G, and then of course there was 4G, and now we've got 5G, and I'm sure there's a 6G, which I don't know what we'll do with that. It's probably just going to wire AI right into our heads or something. But if you think about 2009, it was a perfect time to launch a cloud-based real estate brokerage because we'd got to that technology curve. And then really the second question was, what would it take to take a successful real estate agent or team out of the physical bricks and mortar environment that every one of them were used to? What would it take for them to want to be involved in a virtual real estate brokerage? And for me, it had to be a competitive cap and split, and that's what we have. Had to have a base of technology and tools, which we introduced. We've improved it dramatically since the early days. And then if we could answer basically all those things, and then we did the Regus deal, which is still, I think we're the only company that does it, where we provide access to any Regus anywhere in the world. So you can actually go and use an office if you need it. So it take away the single biggest objection was, where do I go to work? Well, you can use any Regus that you want. And we said, if we do that, and then we layer in from the savings that we get, revenue share and equity, I would be there in a heartbeat. And that's the real estate brokerage I'd hang my license at. And so for me, it was like, if I would do it, I think it's got potential, but it was a total science experiment. So the long answer, shorter, would be, I believed it had legs, but I didn't know it had this many legs.
I guess you never know till you just go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So as a first to market model, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in the early days, and how did you overcome such massive growth and scaling?
Yeah. So early days, I mean, we started with about 40 or so agents that were basically on my real estate team. And so the first thing was to kind of get them sort of mentally on board. And then, of course, we had to do our first EXP explains. And there were lots of no's in the early days. Now, that was fortunate in the early days. There was in 2009, in November, I think it was November, there was a guy named Jim Cronin. Some of you guys may recognize his name. He had a WordPress hosting company called Real Estate Tomato, and he did a virtual real estate bar camp. Real estate bar camps were really big back in the day. And so I went on there and I described the EXP model, and that really helped kind of create a little bit of momentum. But it was a lot. I mean, we finished the year at maybe 60 agents in 2009. 2010, we were just over 100 agents. 2010, we were probably 150 agents. 2011, we were maybe 200. So we weren't growing that much. We actually did the math. It was around 50% year over year growth, but 50% of a small number is not very many. 50% of a large number, that's a different deal. But then, in 2014 going to 2015, that's when we finally had the credibility with the types of leaders that built this event. I mean, Brent joined in 2015. Gene had joined in April, and Gene Frederick, and that's when things went off the rails in terms of growth. We went from 50% year over year growth to 2015, and hopefully no young children in the room. However, and in December 2015, I had my oh shit moment, which was, this thing is growing so fast that I don't know what to do, that I'm in over my head. And so it was a scramble from the end of 2015 really to the end of 2020. And that was such a, how many of you here were here in 2017? Okay. How long did it take to onboard when you wanted to join EXP? Okay, there you go. Yeah, so it would take a month from the time somebody actually put in their request to join EXP before we could onboard them. How many of you remember how long it got to get paid on a real estate transaction? It was like a minimum of 2 weeks, and that was a good 2 weeks. And so it was very much duct tape and baling wire to kind of handle the exponential growth. Now we've got good systems, we've got great people. Obviously, we would put this team up against anybody in the history of real estate. We've got the best team on the planet in the background building it out so that it's stable and solid and growing around the world. But there was a lot of growing pains.
I feel very spoiled considering I just signed on 2 months ago. Wow, it's very interesting. So I love this question. You mentioned recently that it would take over $100 million for a competitor to put the infrastructure in place to compete with EXP, and multiples to catch up. Multiples of that to catch up. With several similar models emerging, where do you see profitability and sustainability with EXP versus the competitors?
I say this kind of tongue in cheek. It's a little bit of a joke, but it's a little bit true. There is going to be a big fight for number two. And that means that, the way I think about EXP's model is that we built it, one of our core values is sustainability. We built it from ground. One of the benefits of being first is we could actually build it in a way that it actually made sense financially for both the agents and the brokerage. If you're trying to catch up, you've got to figure out a way to do that. And one way you do it is you do it cheaper. Well, you can't do it much cheaper when you've only got about 4% margin to work with to begin with. So so there's not a lot of money in these types of models to begin with. So if you go cheaper, you're going to lose money for the foreseeable future. Well, we've got, at least one copycat competitor is public. So when you read their financials, and they'll publish it next month, as we will, you'll notice they fundamentally will not make money. They'll say they're adjusted EBITDA positive, but adjusted EBITDA is another way of saying we're not profitable, but if you look at us this way, then we are. And so it's really kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod kind of thing. And yet, they have to be, raise more money in order to sort of get to some sort of scale. And then when I think about multiples of that, if they could, again, I'm not saying, I don't want to put too many things out there, but the way I think about it is they would have to spend, $1 billion sort of to overtake us in order to just from a size perspective in terms of the amount of money they would have to spend to sort of catch us and overtake us, and which doesn't make sense, especially if you're going to lose money the whole time.
Right. Nice. I like that. So AI is all the buzz right now. What technological advancements or tools are you most excited about for the future?
How many of you are not using AI on a regular basis? Okay. How many of you are using AI on a regular basis? Okay. So one of the things that I think about is that nowadays, if you don't, you should have your, ChatGPT 4.0, a Claude subscription, or if you're using G Suite, get Gemini, whatever, you should be using all the things that you get Q&A on. You should be plugging into AI just to see what type of content it will generate for you. I'm planning a QBR. So I just jumped in with the international team about a week and a half ago. And so we're going to do our quarterly business get together in about a week and a half. And so this morning, about 5 this morning, I'm going, I need to build an agenda for the meeting. And so I just typed in, here's the things that are important to me. We're going to be doing this event from this time to this time on these 2 days. Build me an agenda. And it built me a comprehensive agenda that normally would have taken me a day to sort of put out there. And I looked at it and going, this is pretty good. It actually did the breaks, how much time to spend during each session. It literally did all that. And so when, as a real estate agent, most of us have CRMs. Hopefully we all do. But how many of us struggle to actually build drip campaigns that are actually relevant to you and your market? Like that is like a perfect application for AI, like for Salem, Oregon, for Hillsborough, for Portland, for Vancouver, Washington. I've got a client that's relocating from California. Give me the top 10 or give me top 3 things that a Californian would need to know about moving to Vancouver, Washington. And say this is going to be part of a ongoing drip campaign, and write it in this voice. And it will write that email for you. And you figure out, all you need to know is the subject, a little bit of content that you think is relevant to that, and you can build a 15, drips in a particular sequence. So I always think about 15 years ago, I thought about this. But I always thought about, what was the client coming in and what persona did they come in? And I spent, I don't know how many weeks, it was probably 2 or 3 months in front of top producer, which back in the day, writing the drip campaigns. And part of it was because I wrote the emails consistently on a regular basis when I was corresponding with my leads. But it took me a long time to build those drip campaigns. I could do 3 months worth of drip campaigns literally in an afternoon. So, I mean, that for me is like kind of a go-to. There's a ton of other ones as well. I mean, if you get into video and you get into the, things like HeyGen, which, anybody using HeyGen in here? Okay, I see 2 or 3, 4 hands. So, I mean, it's incredible what you can do with that platform. Like, one, you can film yourself once, and then you can basically build content using AI, plug it back in, and you can speak it out in your own voice using AI, and it looks pretty natural in the delivery. So if it's short snippets, they may not even know that it was actually delivered using an AI avatar versus you personally. It's a little bit more work, but for, if you get really geeky, I mean, that's a pretty powerful platform, and it's just going to get better than that. I just shared it with one of our team, Seth Siegler, who's our Chief Innovation Officer. There's now companies, and I think about this from a real estate perspective, other than the showing of properties, but I think about the idea that eventually you're going to have your COO, your sales manager, your ISA, and your social media marketing expert, your general marketing team is all going to be AI, and they're going to set your schedule, and you just need to show up and deliver based on the content that it sort of matches up with who you are and who the client is. And, probably 5 years from now, but that's kind of where the future is going. I think our jobs as agents is secure, because houses are not ubiquitous. They're not like selling, whatever. But I think about the idea that AI is going to make most of our back office super, super efficient.
So having won the Glassdoor Award many times for best places to work, pretty good. How do you foster a positive and productive culture within the thousands of employees?
Yeah, so I make this joke, but I also make a lot of times my jokes have a element of seriousness to them. But how many of you came from another real estate brokerage that had physical offices? Okay. How many of you would say that working in EXP has better culture than the offices you came from? Okay. So my running joke is the best way to actually build culture is to get rid of your offices, because when you get rid of your offices, it actually allows people to engage in ways that serve them rather than serving the needs of the broker owner. The broker owner would have you come in the office, go to a sales meeting that you didn't want to be at to begin with, and spend time sort of turning in deals, and then you couldn't even get in front of them because they always had somebody in their office, so you couldn't actually have a conversation with them. And then the rest of the people you ran into wasted your time because you couldn't actually get your business done because they wanted to chatter about whatever. So for me, I think about being, a cloud-based broker as being more efficient, more engaged, and more collaborative, because you get to work with the people that you want to work with, and you get to find your tribe inside of a sea of 90,000 agents, rather than trying to find your tribe in a group of 50, when your group of 50 is so different from everybody else. There's no way to sort of figure out how to sort of build that out. So that's the way I think about it, is get rid of your offices, and your culture is going to improve dramatically.
Love that. Love that. And it shows by how many times you've won the Glassdoor Award. Wonderful. So what has been the most rewarding aspect of eXp Realty's market impact, and what have you learned along the way?
So one is, if you build something successful, you'll have a lot of copycats. That's one. So that, and always be innovating. One of the things that you cannot rest on your laurels. So I mentioned I'm going back to work with the international team for obvious reasons. We had an executive move off and so that kind of created a bit of space. But one of the cool things about it is getting to actually bring in agile processes to a team. The comment that I got a couple days ago was we've done more in a week and a half, sort of working together in an agile way, using all these remote technologies and collaboration than they got done in the last 4 to 5 months. So, which is pretty interesting to think about. But part of that's, always staying up to date with what's working. I'm a geek when it comes to, and a nerd and whatever. I nerd out on org design and how organizations scale. And so for me, it kind of gives me a way to see if what I'm actually picking up actually makes sense. And so I think that's one of the things is recognizing that you have to be in the trenches in order to lead.
Yeah. Nice. So your last question is, if we could get inside the mind of Glenn Sanford for a moment, what are you most excited about concerning the future of the real estate industry?
So I had this conversation a little bit earlier. Carrie, Brent, Dan, and I were sitting at a couch, and the industry is under a tremendous shift right now. There is zero doubt about the next 45 days. We will see the biggest shift in how business is done than in the previous 20 years. And so we're about to go through this big shift, and we're in a really great position as a company. And what I mean by that is we're cloud-based, we're low-cost operate, we're agile, we're nimble, we can actually scale up and down, we can do a lot of things. Anybody who owns a physical bricks and mortar business in real estate in 30, 60, 90 days, going into the fall, into the winter, if the real estate commissions are reduced by only a modest amount, and there will be some pressure because some people won't be able to sort of negotiate their commissions well on the buyer side, what have you, and they won't have learned those scripts. But if it declines by 20%, which I think that's not an unreasonable number to play with, but if the overall commission pool shrinks by 20%, there's probably at least 30% or more of real estate offices that will close, in which case those agents will be looking for a place to hang their license. And EXP is in a great position to sort of capture that market share. So I wish this wasn't happening in the industry, but I'm also really excited about what it could mean for EXP.
Very nice. What do you think of that? Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.